Diabetes is a serious chronic health threat.
Diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
Diabetes.
Type 1 diabetes.
And type 2 diabetes.
Diabetes. About diabetes.
Anything can go wrong.
Diabetes.
Diabetes.
It's amazing how much everything affects your blood sugar.
Well, I was only 8 at the time. My parents had mentioned that they were checking me for diabetes, but I didn't know what that was at all. I was in the hospital for quite a while, and every day they just bring in information, and it's so much. It's a really big change at first, and I wasn't sure, like, is it gonna be like this all the time? Like, is it gonna be only diabetes, like, for the rest of my life? To get past the first little bit, it's just part of your life. For the past couple years, I've been really into sports, and right now, especially football, because that season's going on right now. We got some big games coming up, so that's pretty much all I've been preparing for recently. But I also have to balance that with school, because I got some hard classes.
I don't think it's actually stopped me from playing anything or doing anything that I want to do. Like, you know, I go low during practices and I have to go in, grab my juice, sit out for a couple minutes, which sucks, but it's just part of having diabetes. Because anything can go wrong and you have to be ready for it. But it shouldn't stop you still. Or with sports, you know, you have to, I always put my sugars in the medical bag and maybe my pump if I'm high that day, just so I can go off to the sideline and use my insulin or eat sugar. But I'm still playing at 100% all the time. You know, you can do everything. You don't have to limit yourself because of diabetes. You're still a normal person and you can do everything you want.
I'm really proud of Caleb because we have wanted him to have just the most normal life that he can have with it. And he takes it in stride, and he is just part of his life, and he's pretty responsible for a teenager and how he deals with it. He's a pretty incredible kid.
Yeah.
I think most parents remember what their child's blood sugar was when they got diabetes. And his blood sugar was 37. So normally wanting to be within the 4 to 8 range. So kind of, and from there it was just a tough ride in the hospital. I do think you've experienced a lot of grief for the life that you knew, and you think everything is going to be so different and nothing's ever going to be the same again.
It's overwhelming. Like when he first got it, I didn't want to admit that he had something that will never change and that he could, it will endanger him. So I'm like, I don't think he has it. So
it does take learning, but that's not all it is, because you can learn everything that you can learn to put into place in the right ways. But there's still going to be emergencies. There's still going to be surprise things that go wrong with the equipment. There's going to be all kinds of things happening that you don't expect. So the hard part about diabetes is not the learning curve. It's the ongoing challenges, surprises, lows and highs, no matter how much you learn.
When a kid is newly diagnosed, or when a child is newly diagnosed, the whole family has to take the disease on. And one of the best things I was told was that you're going to feel like you have an infant in the house for the first year or two, or however long it takes for you to kind of jive with the new kind of your new existence. And there's grieving there, because you realize your child isn't going to live a life likely without type 1 diabetes. And so it's going through that, it's learning the management. It's a huge, steep learning curve. There's challenges with every diagnosis, but in talking to some of the parents where their kids have other issues, like prior to having diabetes, or they have a child with another medical issue, is that with a lot of medical issues, you're told, like, this is what you do to make it better. This is, you know, and the parents just kind of do what they're supposed to do, or the kid, you know, it is taking whatever they're supposed to take, and things just roll out that way. With type 1 diabetes, there's so many things that affect blood sugar, and so you're constantly adjusting insulin needs. You're constantly you know, taking a break from activity. As they grow, they need more insulin. And so, there's probably like 50 things that contribute towards changing blood sugar. And especially as a kid, they're growing, they're getting sick, they're emotional, they have anxiety at school, or they're studying hard for a test. So their insulin needs change all the time. And I think that gets draining for parents. I think it's a lot of work.
Sometimes it's difficult to understand if a child has diabetes, but some symptoms we generally see are increased thirst leading to urination, sometimes bedwetting, a sweet-smelling breath, weight loss despite increased appetite, loss of energy, blurred vision, and irritability. The best thing to do would be to seek medical help immediately, because they would need intravenous solution to help to balance out the blood sugars, as well as electrolytes and any acid imbalances that occur.
When a person has high ketones, which is just the buildup in their body, they vomit most of the time, I think, and you're worried about them getting into diabetic ketoacidosis. And so I think mostly people start vomiting. And to watch for that, and then go to the hospital if that's uncontrollable. And as much as you possibly can, we have a ketone meter, and so you can test your ketones, whether it's a kit that tests your blood or a kit that tests your urine, so that you're as accurate as possible. And if your ketones are slowly going up, manage it as best as you can, whether that's through lots of water, a little bit of food, and insulin. And if they keep going up, it is hard to navigate on your own. I'm not going to lie.
But one of my friends that had it since they were a kid, and they're like 40, he said, "You're going to hear everybody tell you that in 5 years there will be a cure. Do not listen to that," because he said, ever since I was a little kid, something was a cure was going to be out in 5 years. So just do your best. So how I was able to cope with it is I went to the technology side and try to learn all the technologies that were coming, but that's how kind of I coped with the loss of control. And I mean, it took me, I would cry at anything for the first 3 months somebody would talk about it, I'd just break out in tears. So I had no idea what was really happening.
One of the misconceptions that people have, I think, is that if you have an insulin pump, then you're all taken care of and your diabetes is just leveled out. So people will say, well, he has a pump, right? So everything's good. How are his levels? They must be great. But it's like the pump is just another way to administer the insulin. You still have to tell the pump how much to give. It's just that he doesn't have to put a separate needle in his arm. It will give it to him through his tubing. But it doesn't fix diabetes. It doesn't automatically give him what he needs at exactly the right time.
And it corrects the highs. It doesn't help with the lows. In fact, it puts you to the lows lots of times. And then that's where you actually probably want the pump to help you, is to get those numbers up. But so we're halfway there.
The new technology with continuous glucose monitoring is huge. And having a pump that is now connected to it has made a huge difference. So
we actually we don't have to set alarms to wake up in the night at certain times, but now Caleb's pump will alert us, or his continuous glucose monitor, his CGM, will give us a beep if it's high and low in the night, so that we can sleep until that happens. And some nights it doesn't happen anymore because the technology is better. It is adjusting for his levels. So if it sees that his blood sugar is going higher, it will start giving more doses of insulin to bring it down. And if it sees that he's going lower, it will taper back the insulin so he doesn't theoretically go as low, although it still does happen. But it is better than it was, definitely.
A lot of families get really afraid at nighttime, right? That they have this grounded fear that my kid might not wake up the next day. So that would be a horrible thing to live with. CGMs have really given family the ability to sleep all night and given them some peace. But that fear is always in the back of their mind, always. And I don't think it will ever go away because technology can always fail, right? For the low blood sugars, it's been a saving grace for sure. It's one of the most beneficial things that those CGMs have ever done for us is that they'll alarm when they're low. So knowing that you're going to get woken up in the middle of the night is huge. Yeah. Before that, you wouldn't. You would have to wake up a couple times in the night. Families would wake up they check them at 10, 11 before going to bed. They'd wake up again at 2, and they'd wake up again at 4.
Yeah.
And check their kids.
The invention of technology, I do believe, has made those kinds of things. Some of the studies that are being done, I believe, are trying to figure out, if a person, I think it's more aimed at CGMs, that if a person has a CGM on their body and just being simply aware of their blood sugar, just makes them take care of themselves and actually respond, instead of, poking your finger even 5 times a day, you still don't know what's happening in between, right? So I think a lot more of those things are happening a lot less. So, and from a perspective of, I have a teenager, so let's say, they're going out and if a person's having a couple of drinks, they have to be aware of that as well. So, but yeah, just having that on them, I think makes them so much more aware. And hopefully, fingers and toes crossed that you'll see a lot less of those, later in life issues because of it, which is huge.
Since I got the CGM now, I don't have to pay attention to my blood sugar at all unless I'm either high or low, and I'll get an alert for that. While I was in elementary school, I would have to finger prick, before you go outside for lunch, and then, you're behind and all the other kids go outside. But now with this, it's amazing. I can just look at my phone for half a second and be like, oh, I'm in a good range, or, I need a little bit of insulin, maybe a little bit of sugar. So the CGM is probably the biggest thing that's made a positive impact on my diabetes care.
There are 2 ways we can administer insulin, either by multiple daily injections or by use of an insulin pump. We generally prefer the pumps in children and teens because we have increased control and monitoring of their blood glucose, as well as a reduction in hypoglycemia, which can lead to the cognitive issues. Pumps can also communicate with continuous glucose monitoring devices to make timely adjustments to the insulin infusion rate with minimal intervention.
I've had diabetes for so long that I know you need to pay attention to it. You can't just ignore it. And then it's you're super high and then you got to pay attention to it for longer. So if you just keep it in the back of your mind that you should be within your target range, I think you'll do fine. But if you let it go, then there's not much you can do.
Yeah, it was hard in the beginning because I wanted to really use diet to control it a bit more in the beginning. And Mike really wanted him to be as normal as possible and have any food. So we had to balance that. Also, you were really worried when he was high because being high for a long time can be so detrimental to your health. But I was really scared that he was going to have lows. And then I knew that that's dangerous when you can go unconscious and worse. So we basically had the opposite fears.
It's a tough in a relationship too, of course, because you both want the best for your child and you both have different ideas, and one wants it high, one wants it low, and you can't ever control it. So I don't really know where you kind of just learn to do the best with what you can and with very little sleep. So
I see it definitely on marriages. A lot of marriages crumble. They crumble generally with if you have any child with a health condition, because I work with them all. A lot of marriages can't pull through when you add in a chronic condition like this. So yeah, it's a huge strain. A lot of families break apart. And it's a huge strain on the other siblings, right? When you have a child that also has now a chronic condition, is that all the attention now goes to this child and all the energy and all the time. It's constant work, right? Nonstop every day. And so the other siblings often get overlooked, and that puts a huge strain on the family. Find something each day to take that stress off and then stay connected. If you are a couple, have those date nights. You've got to get out. I know one of the biggest stresses is that you can't leave a child with diabetes in the care of anybody, right? So a lot of these families can't go for date night because there's nobody that can look after them. There's no grandparents that are trained. There's no friend. There's no neighbor. You can't just drop them off at the friend's house because they don't know how to look after it. So I know that's our to-do list for this year, is to provide date nights for our families here in Vernon so that these families can go out. Maybe they can connect with each other and share date nights, right? If they know of other families that have diabetes, they can take turns and look after each other's kids, but they need to go out. Yeah, look after themselves and go out together. It's super important.
One of the first things I say to people is like, check in with your person because this is hard, and I think that the rates are actually pretty high of separation when not necessarily in the diabetes world, but in the diagnosis world, if you're diagnosed with something your child is. And so, as much as you can, keep that partnership and keep that community within your own home, right? And that support. So I would, I'm very, very lucky in my world in that way, but I know not everybody is, right? If they had communication problems before it happened, then gosh, it's hard. So, I hope our community is what people need when they're diagnosed. That's what we're going for. And I'm ridiculously proud to be part of it. So diabetes itself has a stigma, right? And people think they get it but they really don't. And so many people have said to me, I really didn't understand until I was in it, until my child had it. We just started thinking about all the different community events that we could try to host, and just started putting it together. And so our first event was a family park day at Sovereign Park. And we just brought games and food and just said, meet us here on a Sunday. And I think there were 12 or 15 families that showed up or something like that. And so I think from there, it was, there was so much great feedback from that first park day, and the kids had so much fun, and the kids met other kids, and they got together, and you saw, 3 7-year-olds chatting and talking about what their numbers were and what they like to, do to treat lows. And it was just so heartwarming. And so we just kind of went from there. And every time we get a new family, if they want connection, we'll give them that connection. So, and I get notified usually when there's a diagnosis, or Katie does, and we reach out right away. And so they automatically become a part of our community if they want to be in it.
And so when we get a new diagnosis, we introduce them to our group. It's a social group with all the families and kids that have diabetes. And we'll link them up with 1 or 2 of our mentor families right away so that they can connect with a parent and another kid. Sometimes, depending on the age of the child, I might link them up with another kid that's their age right away, even if they're not part of the community, just so that they can, get together right away. Another 8-year-old boy or 12-year-old girl, just connect them. You have to get people with chronic conditions with each other. They have to support each other.
Yeah, getting connected with other moms whose children have diabetes was huge because they just really understand where you're coming from, and you can talk about your emotions around it. You can talk about the practical aspects, like where do you get your supplies and which pump are you on, and those practical things, but then also the feelings and maybe the frustrations that you feel about his different activities and different people not understanding things and those kind of things. That's where it's really important to have people that are going through the exact same thing.
Since I was so little when I got it, it's kind of like, is there anyone else out there that is going through what I'm going through? And just hanging out with kids with diabetes, it was like they're just normal like me. They like sports, they like video games, just what normal kids like. And I think that was a really big positive impact for me as well.
It's like one big family. So, and that's the goal, is that from the medical perspective, from the, physical activities and getting together perspective, but also what that means is really good mental and emotional health as well. So I think that's, it's just really well-rounded.
I think every community has people who are inspired by diabetes and have a passion for it. I think that they just have to be given the idea. And I think these little committees can be set up easily in every community. I think people want to volunteer. They want to be part of something that makes you feel good at the end of the day. Perhaps people just haven't thought about it.
I read a quote at the end of a book, and it said, if you want to live a good long life, get type 1 diabetes and take good care of it. And I kind of hold that all the time, because you're learning as you go. You know so much more about the food you put in your body. You know how your body reacts to that food. I didn't know that potatoes are hard on the body, until I had a type 1 diabetic. We learn so much, but overcome a lot too. And so I think we should all pat ourselves on the back.
I feel like now that we understand diabetes more than we did in the first couple of years, of course, like My blood sugar has been so much better with the CGM and my pump, and it's a lot less stressful now that we're kind of experts. If I could help someone going through the first couple of years, I would tell them it's going to be a big change, and you need to just try your best, because you're never going to be perfect. You're always going to have some high days, some low days, but you just need to trust that you'll get through it, and you're doing your best no matter what. So say don't let diabetes get in the way of you being yourself. You can still do whatever you want, as long as you keep on top of your diabetes and you're responsible about it. You can do so much. I've heard parents of kids with diabetes saying that they don't let their kids play super active sports or go to sleepovers just because of how hard it is to control your blood sugar. But for me, if you make the adjustments you need to and bring your sugars to the field or bring your insulin to the field, whatever you need to do, you can do it pretty easily. As long as you keep on top of your diabetes and you're responsible about it, you can do so much. Don't hold yourself back.
Thanks again for joining us as we explore the complexities of juvenile diabetes. In the next episode, we chat with Kyla, who shares her journey of how untreated mental health conditions led to early diagnosis of diabetes. She discusses the mental health challenges associated with her condition, how she successfully overcame these difficulties and continues to thrive.